radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Good evening, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Today is May 4th, 2023. This is Fade to Black. May the 4th be with you. And this episode is brought to you by Accidental Truth, the new documentary by Ron James. It is now streaming on all platforms. This is the documentary for our community. Go and check it out. And I'll say it, and you got to be ready for it. My 8 seconds make the entire film. I got 8 seconds, but I don't waste it. Go and check it out right now on all streaming platforms. The links are below. All right, tonight we are joined with the one and only Steve Mera. He's back with us live from the United Kingdom. And tonight we're going to discuss a lot of things. We're going to focus on Project Doorway. It's a new study in scientific inquiry into the UFO phenomena, its capabilities, and its interaction. It's going to be a great show tonight. Steve is undoubtedly the UK's most respected researcher in the realms of UFOlogy, Unexplained and Supernatural. He's got over 1,000 hours of mainstream alternative TV programming under his belt, but he is also the founder and the of the scientific establishment of Parapsychology, established back in 1996. And he has also got Phenomena Magazine, which I read every single month. It is the world's largest e-zine of its kind. Check this out. Distributed in 12 countries, 4 languages, to over 1.8 million subscribers. His links are below, phenomenamagazine.co.uk, and of course, Zohar, StargateTV.com. Those links are below, and I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, all the way from England, my good friend, Steve Mera. Steve, my brother, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing very well, Jimmy. Thanks for having me on the show. It's great. It's always a pleasure.
It's you know, it's just great to hear your voice, man. It's just so great. Now, we were talking about that earlier. I'm not going to bring that up, but I just had this weird experience a few weeks ago with you and your voice, and it was it was strange, man. It really happened. So there you go. Don't worry, everybody. I didn't have any strange dreams about Steve or anything like that, but he just popped up in my electronics in my house. Very mysterious situation, but welcome back. And before I say what have you been up to and everything else, we have a pretty cool thing that we're going to be doing this August out there in Manchester. What's going on?
Yes, yeah, we're looking forward to seeing you here, Jimmy. I mean, everybody's excited to have you coming over. That's just it's amazing. But we've got each and every year we put on a number of events, and one of those is the largest one. It's the largest event covering the subject of UFOs, the paranormal, the strange, and the profound. And it's known as the Awakening Expo, and it's the largest now in Europe. We have up to roughly about a couple of thousand people, 2,500 people turn up on the day, stretched over 3 days actually, Friday, the Saturday, the Sunday. This is one of the images from the Friday VIP ticket sales, and of course we have Craig Charles, who's going to be joining us from Red Dwarf, if anybody doesn't know him. He also does a lot of music gigs, and he's also an artist himself. So we're going to be looking forward to seeing him because he's recently just done a television series investigating the subject of UFOs, and some of the most interesting cases around the world, even, and some throughout the UK, which have been fascinating over the last few years. So we're really looking forward to seeing him. We've got an absolute stellar lineup. To be honest, it's everything and anything is going to be covered over the 3-day period, right, from August 25th to the 67th of this year in Manchester, in the UK.
Yeah, and a couple things, by the way, Red Dwarf, that was amazing. Funny.
That's the first thing that people come to mind. Oh, Red Dwarf is the first thing, people. But a lot of people know him before. He does a lot of club DJing and those sort of things as well. So he's well known in the music industry throughout the UK.
But Red Dwarf, when it first started, I said to myself from the first episode, I was like, this was made for me. It was weird. It was quirky.
It's that typical UK humor that we have, but castaways in space, in a sense of speaking.
Right. I loved it. It was just amazing. But to put an event like this together, of course, we've got Billy Carson, at the center of this, but Melissa Tittle and James Fox and Mary Rodwell and Nick Pope and Daryl Sims is coming over as well. And then, of course, the European side of things is going to be represented there too as well. So it's kind of like the United States comes to Manchester, and we're going to mingle for a few days.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's going to be really interesting because we're going to be hearing a lot about new information, that's been brought forward, new research, and it's interesting times. It's a lot of strange things have happened over the last couple of years, and it's about time now that people are coming forward with new data, new information, and a lot of things are happening in the background, which slowly but surely is edging us slowly more towards some explanations as to what some of these things represent.
Now, you have been, and one of the things that I really enjoy about you is that you've been at the center of this. You've been one of those guys. You've been behind this. You've been pushing. You've been investigating. You've been researching this for a very, very, very long time. But your knowledge base, you've done so much research. And so when I say something like that to a researcher like yourself, and then you find the world in this crazy position finally, where it is being discussed. It is now out in the open. Steve, honestly, and be straight with me, we're friends. Did you ever think we would be here?
No, I did not. I mean, it was always the elephant in the room discussion. It was one of those, people would give you a raised eyebrow regarding the subject of UFOs, but now, and I was very surprised how quickly that was digested and accepted by the general public, because you've got the general public saying, no, we don't believe in all that rubbish. It's all, fairy tales and fake stories. And then all of a sudden, when we get announcements like the Pentagon saying that these things are real, and other departments, scientific departments and specialists which say, yes, there's something going on here, then I was just surprised the quick turnaround from being non-believers to just accepting it so quickly. And but it isn't the topic that is the elephant in the room anymore, because you can freely talk about it and say, hey, you know what, it's this is what the guys are saying, and that makes a big difference. I didn't think we'd ever get to that point. I thought it was always going to be skullduggery and things swept under the carpet, as they always have been. But you know what? The more you look into this now, I'm thinking that, well, maybe it's not just a matter of disclosing some information to the general public, but I think there's an agenda to do so, and that's what's really interesting, because things like that cost a lot of time, a lot of money, and are very carefully planned out, and that's what makes these things very interesting.
Now, okay. Can I give you my take? I'm going to give you my brief take on it. My brief take is this. My personal feelings on this is that, I wanted this. I wanted it really bad. But now that we are here, I kind of want it back.
Isn't it always the way? I mean, our focus in trying to get somebody to cop up and say these things are real, I've kind of they disintegrated in a day, and now we have to focus on why are they telling us?
Right. I mean, because it was our own little secret society. We're all, a band of merry men and women, right? We are Camelot, and we're out there fighting the good fight and everything against the man, and now it's like,
True. I mean, I really hope that there is going to be some formal, proper disclosure come at the end of this. That I'm very positive about. The negative side about it is that when it's all out, I'll be out of a job.
And I hear that a lot, and you know what? It's only going to be better for you and I and others that have been doing this for a long time, because there'll be so much more to discuss, and we won't have to be behind the veil. So I think it's going to expand, and it's just going to be amazing. That's what I take. I get the email every day. So Jimmy, disclosure, it's about to happen. What are you going to do for a job? I'm like, man, my job is set. Let's hope that happens.
Yeah, there's got a lot of people who's going to be wanting to find out more about this then, when it really comes to pass. I mean, you know what? There's even the possibility that the United States government might seek out people like yourself and Linda Moulton Howe, many other people, because they're used to delivering this sort of information to the public. And these people are trustworthy now, and the audience know that. The people know that because people, they've seen them do this for years, deliver this information. Maybe the US government might start utilizing. You expect that knock on the door one day, Jimmy, to say, "We want to, can you help us out?"
Maybe they already have. I'll talk to you about that when we get to the UK. Okay, so let's actually start here. You've been doing a lot of research, and tonight we're going to talk about Project Doorway and some other things. But last night I had Dave Schrader on the show, and as you know, Dave and I used to host Coast to Coast together, and I love bouncing ideas off of him because we're so similar. And the question that I'm about to ask, I've also asked a few times over the last few weeks with veterans. And so I'm going to ask you this. Let's start here before we get into Project Doorway. It's all connected, though, right? In that you've been doing this for so long, but what have you learned? What's the one thing that you can share with us? What is it that you have learned?
Wow, that's a one mega question because I've learned a lot of things as time's gone on. But if you're talking about real things that stand out, I mean, my mentors back in the early 80s were telling me, look, UFOs represent nuts and bolts craft, and they're flown by occupants that are coming from distant planets in the universe and traveling to Earth. And that was just simply that. But we know much more now that the UFO phenomenon, or if you want to refer it in its new term, UAP, is much more than just a nuts and bolts craft. And the capabilities of some of these things put it outside the range of normal physics as we currently understand. So for me, it was an eye-opening regarding the world we perceive. The reality that we thought was a real strong wall and we could never get through it. It's just solid matter. It exists and we're part of it. But the more I've learned over the years is it suggests that reality is pliable. It can't be broken, but it can be bent. It can be put in favor to some things. It can be manipulated. And one thing for sure is that it isn't what we initially thought. And we're currently finding more out. And as time goes on and as we expand physics, we're slowly going to realize that the world that we perceive is not exactly the world that we thought.
And so what you are saying is that our ability to understand and your ability to understand has just gotten better, right? That the ability to understand before was what we understood about Apollo capsules, right? Everything had to be metal with a dude in it and flying across space and these vast distances, but that may not be the case. It's some of it, but it certainly wouldn't suggest that it's all of it. Is that what
No,
you're saying?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like any study. You know, you quickly assume that if I'm going to study this, then I'm going to learn more. And if I'm going to learn more, then the amount of information I need to learn is going to slowly decrease. That's not the case when it comes to the study of UFOs, because as soon as you start opening all these other doors, it leads to multiple other things, which you think, oh, hang on a second, I've got to, not only do I have to understand about UFOs, I have to understand about how paranormal phenomena is experienced. I have to understand about how the human brain and how we perceive and cognate these experiences. I have to look into the environment and what's happening in the environment, and also many things, even quantum physics now. This is a subject that once you start studying it, it expands. It's the opposite way round, and you end up on a never-ending journey, an obsessive one, which, you know, I doubt you could even cover it in a lifetime, to be honest.
You bring up a great point, though. Even the great physicist, and if we look at something like the Fermi paradox, right? And you know, if you go back to Oppenheimer or Feynman, you know, any Wheeler, right? If you go back to that time period, they were still thinking the same way that we were. Flying saucers made of metal and dudes and dudettes, you know, flying these. They didn't consider, because they didn't understand the alternatives, which, you know, folding space, bending space, multi-realities, parallel worlds, faster than the speed of light, or no, they didn't have a grasp on those concepts. They certainly do now, and they definitely tie into the UFO phenomenon, right?
Yeah, I mean, the UFO phenomenon, let's if you put it to the point, is one that seems to have occupied the neighborhood, the local neighborhood. Because we're finding evidence and things on Mars and the moon and things like that, and yeah, the local neighborhood. But if you're looking at the evidence to support extraterrestrials are traveling the vast distances of space, which we initially thought and were told, that is being superseded by the evidence to support that there are realities right next door to us that could be being utilized by phenomena jumping in and out. Now, if you look at the progression of research that's trying to reach a conclusion, that is well ahead of the evidence supporting that these, whatever they are traveling the vast distances of space from all these other planets.
And you know, this is, you know, why we think that way now? It's because we're trying to figure out how to get there. That's why.
Oh yeah, we are. Absolutely.
We're trying to figure out how to get there, because we know that 100,000 years in a ship is going to kind of suck. You don't want to go that road. We've got to figure out a way around that. And ET has already done that. And that's why we think that way, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, when we first talked about traveling to Mars, it wasn't about how we were going to get there propulsion-wise or what type of ship's going to be required. We knew you could generate and manufacture that. The biggest problem is having 3 or 4 astronauts sat in a tin can for 7 months or 8 months without killing each other.
Let alone 100,000 years. Yeah. The subject today is unreal to me, and the more that physics exposes itself, and the more that science exposes itself, And they are trying to get people like you and I to understand this crazy world of physics and theoretical physics and quantum physics, that we're all talking about the same thing. And that's what I really enjoy.
Yeah, it is. It's the more we study this, the more we're pointed into certain directions. And one of the most constant things that keeps coming up is about quantum reality and quantum mechanics. And of course, we're only just starting in that subject, but the more we start to learn about that, I think it's going to start to reveal how some phenomena has the capabilities of manifesting.
What did you what a great segue into Project Doorway, because as we discuss the study, does it suggest to you that everything is connected? And I'm talking about ghost and near-death experiences and consciousness combined with entanglement and multiple worlds and the multiverse and parallel world, the powers of the mind, right? And everything that is involved with that at the quantum level. Is everything just connected?
Well, when we start to look at all the varied type of experiences people have throughout the world, and they are massively varied, there is an interconnection thread between them all. And what you have to do, you have to literally use in the form of paranormal mechanics, in a sense of speaking, is take apart, look at the mechanism behind the phenomena, each and every one, and you start to draw similarities and comparisons. Now, one of the biggest problems for us when we started in the subject, we were kept in this box of ufology, and we're trying to make this picture up to find out what the hell is going on. And the biggest problem for us is that some of the things we needed for that, those pieces of the puzzle, didn't even lie in the subjects of ufology. It lied in parapsychological research, the supernatural, the paranormal, the metaphysical, the spiritual. And it was, I don't know if this was done on purpose, Jimmy, that it was originally compartmentalized in this way to keep us out of these other subjects, to stop us building a better picture and quite understand. Or it's just been created and it's just one of those things. Because, for instance, you've got the Ghostbuster guys, the ghost hunting guys, they won't deal with the UFO guys, and the UFO guys wouldn't deal with them. But really, it's priority that they did, because we're dealing fundamentally of many connecting phenomena here. So much so, I mean, you question if this is an extraterrestrial source coming from some other planet and it's really alien to our world, then why should it have over 64% of attributes within the paranormal, which is an earthly, ancient phenomena? And you think, well, that can't be by coincidence. And the more you look, the more you find the connections. And that's what leads us to think, okay, there's a lot more going on here. And so we have to take all those walls down. So there's that compartmentalization doesn't exist anymore. And start looking at the subject as a whole, like in the subject of phenomenology, the whole thing. And then you start to get little pieces of the puzzle. And you think, okay, yeah, that kind of fits within the subject of UFOs.
Any one of these, let's say that these are dominoes. Okay, these are dominoes sitting upright. Psychic phenomena, metaphysical phenomena, supernatural phenomena, spiritual phenomena, paranormal phenomena. These are all dominoes. If one of these falls, don't they all fall?
Well, if one of these fall, then a fundamental part of what you're trying to conclude will never be obtained, because it's a requirement of all. There's certain areas in each one.
I'm saying the opposite. You are right. Yes. Okay. So take what you just said and flip it over backwards. What I meant to say was, if we, I'm a better host than that. I should have asked the question better.
The domino effect. Yes, yeah, I understand what you're getting at now. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, if
does.
One of these is proven, then they're all proven.
Yes, and the whole thing, being theory, collapses like a castle of cards. It really does.
Yes. And you are also right. Now let's go back to your answer though to my incorrect question. If we pull one of these out, then we also have a problem, right? If one of these ends up having an issue, then we're going to have problems with everything else, including ET and maybe even physics in general.
That's right. I mean, if we just, for an example, pull out metaphysical phenomena and throw that away, one of the biggest problems is that we talk with SETI astronomers, the guys there doing the work, and they said something quite unusual to us. Actually, they said space is unusually quiet. I thought, well, that's interesting. But when you look at the statistical surveys, the new ones that have come out now, regarding how many UFOs are seen around the world. Now, of course, you have to be conservative because not all countries are taking part in this. And you have to say some of them are hoaxes and some of them are fakes, some are misidentified. However, multiple thousands are seen each day over a period of just 24 hours. Now, where are all these thousands and thousands of UFOs coming from? Well, there doesn't seem to be enough evidence that there's a superhighway passing backwards and forwards to Earth. Yes, they might get some things now and again. NASA films some anomalies as well, as we know. Right. But we don't have a superhighway, Jimmy, going backwards and forwards. So where are they coming from? So the theoretics behind this is that they must be manifesting in certain locations, materialize, go about their business, dematerialize. We always are seeing video footage of people and experienced reporters saying, yes, this object just seemed to fade out, or it just blinked out, it disappeared, it switched on like a light bulb, it just appeared there. They seemingly have these capabilities of popping in and popping out of our reality. And if that's the case, and we didn't have metaphysical phenomena involved, that would be an impossibility. Metaphysical phenomena has to exist.
Then the highway would have to exist, and that would be a visible thing. That would be like the M5 or M6 at 5 p.m. in London, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Which is, I understand, it's pretty gnarly. That's what I've heard. So
yeah, it is.
The other part of that is where astronomers and physicists will bring up that part of the argument, that we would see interstellar travel, we would see trade routes, we would see evidence of this occurring, because they are still thinking, nuts and bolts, that's how the travel would be. And that's probably not the case. You wouldn't be.
No, I don't think so. I think, if we're dealing with an extraterrestrial advanced civilization, then surely they've worked out how a method to cross such vast distances without having to linearly travel. Now, we could talk about wormhole technology. I think my personal opinion is that they're utilizing stars. The huge energies and magnetic fields around stars could be utilized to creating literally a punch a hole through from star to star, like star hoppers, in a sense of speaking. And why would I come to such a conclusion? The SOHO satellites, which have been monitoring our sun for quite a number of years now, the amount of recorded video footage of UFOs around the sun, entering the sun, coming out of the sun is ridiculous. There are thousands of these things that are regularly recorded and reported. And it's far too many to just throw away that theory that they're utilizing stars somehow, because they seem to be non-physical. How can a craft just enter into the sun? You think it'd be burned up. But that's our physics, and that's our understanding, And how does an apparition walk through a wall? When people claim to be abducted, how do they be taken through a solid wall? It's our physics which seems to cause that limitation of how we think. And I think once we get out of that, as soon as you draw a line and say, okay, there's beyond that, there's a new form of physics involved, then everything will kind of seem to slots into place.
Well, and so before we move on, if back to that domino theory, right, that domino idea, the metaphysical side of this, ships appearing and disappearing, and trust me, Steve, and I know you've gone through the same experience, that I have. And when you see that for the first time, like I have, dude, I start to question my own reality. And I also start to question about how I'm going to speak to people, because I don't want to sound like I have lost my friggin' mind. But you still see it, and there's no other way to explain it. But isn't that what ghosts are, right? Isn't that what Bigfoot is doing? Isn't that the paranormal phenomena? Isn't that the spirit world? Isn't that everything else, right?
It is. Yeah, it's all interconnected. You know, how, if you look at breaking down the aspects of each and every, if you refer to, say, cryptids, you know, cryptid encounters, they seem to be a bit like poltergeists because they're fear inducers. You know, most people say, oh my God, I was overwhelmed by a weird feeling of fear, horror, terror I've never felt before.
Right.
You know, that's like poltergeist stuff does that. Paranormal stuff does that. You know, that the smell of sulfur filled the air. Well, why is it filling the air in cryptid? It smelt through demological phenomena. It smelt during paranormal disturbances. It smelt during UFO incidents. The smell of sulfur is strongly connected with all of this phenomena. And the more you go, the more you look to say, hang on a second, these connect. There's something going on here where the physics of it are found throughout all.
Now, the sulfur thing, that's just British folklore. You're just talking British stuff now. That's like, that's UK stuff. You know, I have, and so have the listeners, right? Where you go through life in this research and in this community of ours, and there's a lot of check boxes, a lot of experiences you want to go through, right? And I'm checking them off, you know, one by one. They're all happening. I don't want the sulfur check box. That one is down on the bottom of the list, man. That's when you're going to back up and go, all right, there is something really going on. Yeah, I haven't done the sulfur thing yet.
No, I mean, it's really interesting. You know, I mean, if we look at James Fox's most recent Moment of Contact documentary, there's a little aspect in there where one of these entities was captured. And the guy actually handled this, who unfortunately passed away. And the smell of sulfur that he had absorbed not only onto his clothing, but within his pores of his skin, filled the hospital. And it took them months to get rid of that smell. That's exactly the same as another case that took place of a gentleman who was a geologist who saw a craft. It had landed, looked like a silver UFO. He walked up to it to shout. He thought it was some experimental craft of some sort, and there was a square air vent of some sort on the side, and this thing took off and it burned literally a check pattern onto his chest. He was rushed to hospital. Exactly the same thing. The smell of sulfur had filled his clothing and filled his pores of his skin, and again it took months to rid the smell of sulfur from the hospital. That same smell of sulfur suddenly fills the air during cryptid encounters, Bigfoot encounters. It fills the air during UFO incidents. It fills the air during paranormal disturbances, and is very commonly known throughout, you know, the smell of demological phenomena. So why should that be? Why should we have all these interconnection things?
Yeah, that's right. And what was his name? God, I love that case.
Can't remember his second name.
I mean, how do you, this is what I felt bad for him in that case. And this isn't my comedy act in Las Vegas. This is Fade to Black. How do you explain that to your wife? Because that's what he did. If you remember, he stumbled home. His clothes were all torn up. Remember, he's got the burn on his chest. He reeks of sulfur, and he's got to go in and tell a UFO story. And you've got to. I mean, that's a tough one, man.
Yeah, but he quickly fell ill, very quickly.
He did.
From that, and ended up in hospital for quite some time. And his son actually did a full document and everything, kept all the information, and literally wrote up everything regarding his experience. But it's a profound one.
Now okay, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this, but I just want to refresh my memory. That's when he had his truck. He was walking his dog, right? And he went out near the forest.
Was it Falcon Lake incident? But I know he was into geology, and he had a little hammer with him, and he was going looking for sort of, different types of stones and things. And he was just passing the day, and he heard a craft, some type of humming. He looked up, it was very low, just above the trees. It looked like it was in some form of distress. It was a perfect silver flying saucer type craft. He watched it come down to in the distance, and he saw it landing on a ridge. He made his way there. The door was actually open on the craft. He made his way there thinking it was obviously some type of top secret US military craft that had been flying. Maybe it came under some problems, but he was also an engineer. So I thought maybe I might be able to help out. These guys might be in trouble. So he walked up towards the door, which was open, and he shouted in, "Guys, do you need any help?" And he did hear some chattering in there.
He heard chatter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what happened was all of a sudden, he didn't realize, but he's standing next to the side of this object, and there's an air vent or some type of exhaust vent there. And next thing is this thing just blasts at him and took off silently, and then wobbled around a little bit, and then took away. And that burnt right through his clothing and made that burn mark pattern on his skin. And he was he was quite severely ill for quite some time after that incident.
Yeah, it's an incredible photograph. It's of him with his exposed chest in that pattern that's burned. It's big. It's like
yeah.
Now, what are how many people were involved in this study?
Well, there's really, I initiated with a colleague called Barry Fitzgerald. Now, many people know Barry Fitzgerald from being the head investigator of Ghost Hunters International, which was a TV show that was on Sci-Fi. They went to 53 different countries investigating paranormal phenomena. But his passion is ancient sites and UFOs, those sort of things. And we've both been involved heavily in the paranormal. I think I went a little bit further into parapsychological research and experiments which we conducted. There were 17 experiments which were conducted. Only 5 have been released to the public domain yet at this moment in time, but those were very, very interesting. And there was an area that I was also introduced to the UFO phenomena. But, I kind of exhausted everything I could do in the UFOs. I thought, well, I want answers. Where do I go to get them? And I used to think, the books, the authors. And you read them, but you don't get the answers. You get more data. And the data keeps growing to the point where I felt like I was only adding a stone to the mountain I already had. And I thought, I want answers. How do we get them? How do we advance this subject? Public inquiries into the US, and we do need a new one, to be honest with Jimmy. Now we're starting to understand paranormal aspects and the metaphysical phenomenal stuff. But back then, in the 60s, we started having these inquiries into the UFO phenomena, whole different matter. But then we need some. Well, we 2023 now. Surely we've got some answers. And I thought, well, if we haven't, then how do we get it? So I thought, let's do some studying. And the first thing that we actually did, myself and Barry, was to do statistics. And we looked at the amount of sightings taking place around the world. Then we looked and listed the 200 most significant UFO incidents worldwide. And we cross-referenced it using 2 different satellites in orbit. One which is mapping the Earth's gravitational anomalies, and another one is mapping magnetic anomalies, and we overlaid them. And what we found is that all 200 of those major incidents, the most credible ones that took place around the planet, took place in locations, in regions where there was a positive magnetic anomaly of over 200 nanotesla. And then we realized, okay, can that be by chance? And of course, when we increased that from 200 to 2000, we realized that is not by chance. Not only are we having strange disappearances like David Pallad's work in areas of positive magnetic regions of over 200 nanotesla, it's happening in all the major locations around the world where these UFOs incidents are happening. And we're not just talking, seeing a light in the sky here. These are major cases. And I thought that can't be by chance. There's got to be something which is going on there. And that's what led us in to realizing that the UFO phenomena has a very, very strong association to geological and geophysical, the ground, the earth itself, as opposed to the sky. Most UFOs are flying from one place to the other, but most of them are doing geological tests. They're firing beams of light down to the ground. They're monitoring obviously everything that we're doing as well. But there's some strong connection, geological and geophysical here. And the last straw is when the TTSA came out and basically mentioned about the how these things have certain methods of being able to move around. And one was flying underwater, or being underwater, in the sky, in space. But what they left out was, well, these things have the capabilities to fly into mountains. You know that. I know that.
You have somebody peeking around the corner in the background.
Oh, that'd be Jackie with me puppeting.
Yeah, I loved it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Tell Jackie, yo.
Yeah. Yeah, so you know that as well as I do, Jimmy, because you've seen them.
Right.
They go into the ground. They go into hillsides. They go into mountains. They go into, how can they do that? If these are physical, they just simply go into mountains. So there's another method of what they're doing there.
Now, if we go back and we look at different reports that are surfacing now, I'm just talking at the government level where this research is there. And, we've got stuff, out of France. We've got stuff out of the UK. We've certainly got stuff here out of the United States. And that starts talking about A, frequencies, and B, possible injuries, and then associated with that. And then a third part with this, that frequencies may also affect the metamaterials and how they are viewed and utilized. But we're all talking about frequencies here. And then you have the witnesses themselves speaking about this. So that makes item number 4, and they're all tied together.
Yeah, now this is really interesting because after doing 2 years of research, and we did travel around to different countries around the world to conduct this research because we wanted to go to these locations and prove it that these locations are very potent, and all were pretty much away from anyone, no humans. And I think the phenomenon likes that sometimes, especially when it's manifesting. And what was really interesting is we did a report, and it was the first scientific report that we did on Project Doorway. And I distributed it out onto the internet shortly for a small period of time to see how things would go. And I was contacted by the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies in the US. And they kind of asked me to join, and then I thought, well, this is interesting, because I am aware of the SCU, what the work they do, and they're quite a high priority organization. The likes of people, Travis Taylor has been there, and John Alexander's been there, and of course it's also associated with Hal Puthoff, Eric Davis, and I was told how Hal Puthoff had looked at our work, and that led me to think, okay, you know what, we're getting somewhere here, and that pushed us even further. And of course, the further we went down that road, we realized that we can go to these places and have interactions with this phenomenon.
And what did you find out? Let me pop this up here real quick. This is semi-related. Well, everything is connected.
Yes.
What did you start to find out?
Well, you know what? When we were able to find, because the biggest thing is usually a shot in the dark. I'm going to go out and see a UFO tonight. Can you guarantee it? Well, we can. Over a period of time, we can, because we know where to go, because we know where the seemingly phenomena is manifesting. So when we go out to these locations, it allows us to conduct tests at the time of phenomena being present. when we did go out and do these tests, we found out that a lot of these objects, these craft or light phenomena, some of them are intelligent light forms. That's something else we're going to get into, because people are mistaking them. They're called UAP, but there's something else going on in the atmosphere as well regarding intelligent light forms. But they're generating infrasonic sound, the UFOs themselves, and we measured it. We measured 2 different frequencies coming from them, one of which is a very low frequency, and another one is around about the 19 hertz frequency, which is a little bit higher. And the 19 hertz frequency generates fear as well. It's a fear. It's nicknamed the fear frequency in parapsychology, and they are producing it. And that is when we have those wonderful moments like the Steven Spielberg movie, you know, where Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where he's sat in his truck. He's reading his map, and all of a sudden, all the crickets go quiet. And then, boom, this incident happens, the UFO. Now, the crickets are hearing the infrasound. It's as simple as that. Because it's a warning mechanism to them, they can hear infrasonic. And as you're walking through tall grass, you know, and it brushes against you, it generates infrasonic sound. So they think there's predators around. So they fall quiet. And this is the same process why people have this sudden quietness. Because even birds, you know, can hear infrasound, and they suddenly just go quiet. And the phenomena generates that. Sometimes that's experienced prior to the UFO sighting itself, but they are generating this themselves, and we've recorded this.
Now, and so it makes me wonder, Steve, that it's not necessarily that's the way we react, and you know, species on the Earth react to it. But it just may be the operation of the ship itself, right? Where it is cloaking itself. It's the systems on the ship doing their thing. Maybe it's cloaking, uncloaking. The metamaterials are doing it's what happens when it enters or exits through some type of portal or wormhole. And we've seen more and more evidence of that around the world. And that it's just the sound emitting from, like when you hear a jet fly overhead.
Yeah, absolutely. It could be certainly a byproduct of the craft's mechanisms, certainly. But what's really interesting is that a lot of these objects have an auric field around them. In other words, they look like light, and there's a craft in there, and there's an auric field around the light. It covers the outside of the craft. Now, we've got measuring equipment now, which looks and measures the light formation, and can give us a breakdown on that of frequency of light surrounding some of these objects. It's been done in Hasdalen in Norway as well, where they've looked at these objects in the sky, and not all of them are a natural phenomenon, by the way. And they're measuring, just as we measured, there's a terahertz frequency around these crafts.
Now,
that's a light find.
This is one of your images. This is Barry Fitzgerald, and Barry's amazing, by the way. Nobody wears glasses better than Barry Fitzgerald. Okay, so what's going on here?
Well, this is in one of those locations, positive magnetic regions, and you can see how far away we are from the city there. You know, and Barry's, well, you know, we're deep into the desert, away from everybody, and this is the manifestation of 3 of those objects. Now we nicknamed them, we nickname them amber gamblers because they tend to be amber, usually in color, but they are intelligent and they act intelligently. This is one of his own photographs from Arizona, September 2012. We have daylight photographs, we have video footage, we even have structured craft, which we've managed to, you know, get very close photography and video of them, if they allow us, because sometimes they just don't allow us. And as soon as we throw the equipment in a trunk, then they'll suddenly appear. But this was, again, another location where phenomena manifests and goes about its business.
Now, how do you explain this, though?
Explain
what is actually going on here when you have an LHP like this, a luminous halo phenomenon. Are
Yeah.
we looking at a physical craft? Are we looking at an energy source? Are we looking
Well,
at
it's
a boat?
tricky because there are two things out there look identical, and I can prove that because I have military video footage now of the U.S. military in Afghanistan firing a missile and hitting two of these objects, and they just disintegrated and then reformed and carried on doing what they were doing as if they weren't physical in nature at all. Um, but then there are also structured craft which generate an auric field, so it's very difficult to tell. But what we do know is that when and being part of the SCU, you get to hear about some of the tests that other people were doing. Hal Puthoff was heavily involved in metamaterial analysis, as you probably know. Some of that documentation that was released was the experiments utilizing UFO metamaterials and how they acted under certain conditions. One of those conditions, now this is what's really interesting, one of those conditions was they applied a terahertz frequency to it, and that metamaterial lost its weight value immediately until they turned the light source frequency off, and that was a terahertz frequency. So the light source generated might be able to keep the craft aloft because of what it's made of, those type of metamaterials.
What did you make of before we hit the break? What did you make of the breaking news over the weekend of the cattle mutilations out here in Texas?
Oh, I've studied the cattle mutilations, and I think my theory behind this is all about it's all about immunity. And because, we now know through scientists who have taken samples from the brains of these animals, can find out what was going on at the time this incident happened. And huge amounts of cortisol, huge amounts of adrenaline. The animals are alive when these terrible acts happen to them. But I think there's a reason for that. And the reason for that, suddenly your immune system goes into hyperdrive, and it sends all that good stuff straight to the mucous membranes. Mucous membranes, they'll be found in all soft tissue and the blood. And this is where these mutilations on the bodies are taking place, the soft tissue and the blood. And it leads me to believe that it's down to immunity. It's as if something is trying to figure out, how these animals that are out every day, 24 hours a day, every day of the year, living, are affected by the many thousands, which we don't realize, many thousands of diseases and illnesses that they have on a regular basis and have to deal with. And I believe it's down to the immune system. It's something that's been going on now. It's an old phenomenon. It's not a new one, Jimmy, because I've got records from Dublin. It goes back to the 1600s happening. I even talked with people who had documentation going back even further than that. It's not a new phenomenon. It's an old one, but it's been going on for a very long time.
When I read that account in Dublin of the sheep, right, and I'm reading the words on how they were trying to describe the hundreds of sheep from separate herds, that were mutilated. It was like I was reading it from today. It was nearly the exact situation that we are going through now. And they were just as perplexed, if not more perplexed back then than we are today with our scientific minds.
That's right. Yeah. France had the same problem last year with horses. They're still having occasional incidents with horses, but there was a massive amount of horses which were mutilated. And even the press came out and said these animals have been profoundly mutilated.
And the thing about the Dublin case, I just talked about this last week, is that back then, and I'm not being stupid, I'm just being logical here. They understood sheep better then than we do today.
Yeah.
Right.
You're all right.
They for them to go, wait, hang on a minute. This is strange for them, because that was their life, right? And this was the focus of, and and they were completely dumbfounded. They were perplexed. And that was 1606, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I think whoever's taken has got a bit lazy more recently because they seem to be dropping them from height now. I mean, we were measuring the certain wounds on animals which have been mutilated, and some of the broken bones suggest impact. It's an impact site. And you can tell from the investigation that some of these things have been dropped up to 300 feet in height. And in fact, there was an incident in Colorado where one was found in a tree. You know, many cattle climbing trees these days. You know.
Oh, you haven't heard of flying cattle? Come on.
You know, but yeah, we can look at the impact wounds now, and we can say, yeah, this animal's been dropped from height. Not only was it mutilated, but it didn't even bother putting it back down on the ground.
Now, when we come back, I don't get ahead of your skis. Okay, I'm going to set this up. I'm going to show this blueprint, and then when we come back, we're going to show the actual image. Okay, so don't get ahead of your skis. Don't blow it. See, just talk about the blueprint. Can you do that for me, Steve?
Absolutely.
It's called a setup in radio. Okay, so what are we looking at here?
Okay, so in October, October, theoretics. It's theoretics. October 2016, and in Florida, over the Carnival Cruises, which is a big port where all those ships are lined up to take people away on cruises. Something caught the eye of hundreds of witnesses, and it was this strange looking craft. Now, when I first saw this, I thought, well, it looks like something straight out of a Star Wars film. It can't be real. And there was video footage, and not only one bit of these video footage, there were several, and many eyewitnesses. But what was really, really interesting is the fact that this was moving overhead, traveling in the sky relatively low at about 20 miles per hour. There's no way this should have been kept aloft if it wasn't a balloon. It was traveling against the wind. It clearly looked like it has two large engines. It had a cockpit, a glass floor for observation. Clearly looks to be ours. No identification markings, no numbering, no lighting, nothing that would stand out to say, okay, you know, this is something which is in the public domain. And to me, when I looked at it, I had to say, well, you know what? The video footage has been looked at, it's been analysed, they are authentic. The witnesses, what they reported, they did see it, and it simply is no explanation for it. But what it does show for me is that there is very much likely that we do have some wonderful toys out there that we will clearly misidentify as UFOs.
And so we've got a few definitions, a few definitions divine. We have the cockpit. We have this at about 22 feet in length. We've got two engines, one on either side. We've got different intakes. We have landing gear. We've got a lot of details here. But what is confusing is the 20 mile per hour aspect of this.
Yes.
So with that, I know I've got everybody scratching their heads. So when we come back, we will do the big reveal. Our guest tonight, the one and only, live from the UK, drinking Jackie's coffee, Mr. Steve Mera. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Please visit all of our sponsors. We're taking a quick break here. All of the links are below. We'll be right back. This is Jimmy Church, and I want to introduce you to Life Waves X39 Stem Cell Activation Patch, which has totally transformed my health, my sleep, brain, and my eyes. I no longer need reading glasses. X39 is a true breakthrough in regenerative science. Using light, X39's patented age reversal technology is clinically proven to signal the activation of younger stem cells, accelerating the body's natural healing process. X39 promotes restoration and rejuvenation, bringing the life-changing benefits that I've experienced. By naturally elevating a master signaling peptide in the body, X39 boosts vitality, health, and wellness and resets 4,000 genes to a younger, healthier state. It's one patch, once a day, and you can turn back time with X39. Just go to healingworksnow.com. That's works with an X. healingworksnow.com.
Hey everybody, it's Billy Carson, also known as Forbidden Knowledge. I want to talk to you about a very special event coming up July 30th, 2023, the Forbidden Conscious Awards. We're going to honor people who have been contributing to the conscious community for decades. People that you know and love that have helped you get to higher levels of thought and consciousness and awareness. It's going to be a live in-person event, but seats are going to sell out very fast. You want to make sure you're there in person, and guess what? You can help vote for the winners. Voting is available on forbiddenknowledge.com, and the categories are going to be social media influencer, podcast/radio host, TV host, actor, director, producer, entrepreneurs, health and wellness, philanthropists, authors, field researchers, archaeologists, space anomaly hunters, and of course, a Lifetime Achievement Award. I'll be your keynote speaker that night at the Forbidden Conscious Awards. We have celebrity guests performing. We'll have a halftime show where we're actually going to perform music for you. And don't forget about the pre-event mixer, where if you buy a box seat, you'll be in the VIP section, and you also have private access to a VIP mixer with celebrity guests. Shake hands, break bread, network, and then walk the red carpet with us and take amazing photos. It's going to be a night to remember. You don't want to forget this. Make sure you hurry up and get your tickets because they're selling out very fast. I want to see you there. Forbidden Conscious Awards 2023.
River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. Oh, yeah. River Moon Coffee. I just got a shipment of River Moon, big bags. They send me the Jimmy Church bags. And I got to tell you, it's Christmas. Nothing makes me feel better than a River Moon coffee package coming in the mail. Our guest tonight, live from the UK, Steve Mera is with us. Now, Steve, we did the setup before the break, and I'll pop this up for everybody here. And it's this craft that was cited, hundreds of witnesses. There was some video footage and so forth. Very specific dimensions here. We have 22 feet. We have 38 feet wide. And a lot of identifiable things on this craft. And one of them that you mentioned was a glass floor observation window. Now, isn't that interesting?
No, well, it is interesting. I mean, everything screams out to you that this is ours. I mean, when was the last time you saw UFOs with landing gear that looked like aircraft landing gear? And rocket engines that look like rocket engines. It's just an observation cockpit where you can look down and you can actually see below you as well. So it's obviously some type of, I don't know if it's an observational craft or, but it's everything screams out it's ours. And the problem is that it is ours. It's got to be utilizing anti-gravity. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm sure this thing can really pick up some speed with those hefty engines on either end of the craft. But there was no noise, neither. It was completely silent.
Okay.
So it could be something very strange.
And how's this for strange? Bam.
Now, that is just one still from the video footage. It's been, obviously it's been enhanced as to, sharpened up. but you can clearly make out that looks something straight out of a Star Wars film. But no, that's what it was, traveling literally 20 miles an hour across the sky. You can see that the sun reflection on it, which matches up to the angle and where it was in position on that day. And it's just, yeah, it's got to be ours. And if that is ours, then we have to say, okay, we've mastered anti-gravity, we've mastered noise cancelling technology, you know, and it didn't, you know, they're flying these things around. They don't really care now what people say or what they about it, because I think most people are just going to point to the sky and say UFO rather than anything else. And the photos on the left are other craft that have been seen. This was from last year, been photographed, being test flown, and they just look profound in shape. But it's very unusual, and to me, that's ours. That's got to be ours, Jimmy. And that means that we do have some wonderful toys out there.
You know, Steve, everybody knows what I'm about to say. You know that I live in Palmdale, right? I'm 1 mile from Skunk Works. All right, 1 mile. The runway faces my home. So I sit out there on the second floor of my house. You've got to come out and hang out with me, Steve. It's so much fun. Because what you're seeing, this is like every day out here. So on the second floor, I have a balcony. I have a balcony on the first floor, you know, but on the second floor, I have a balcony and I can see out and over things. It's nuts. I got a couple chairs, got a little table, I got my binoculars, and I just sit out there, and it's like bird watching, except it's a different kind of bird.
Yeah.
This is pretty crazy. So I'm going to swing this over and enlarge this for everybody. There's your observation windows. Very interesting. You can see the landing gear. The landing gear is down. Those do look like jet, some type of jet engine, some kind of forward propulsion. But you know what's lacking here is aerodynamics. Yeah. I don't see lift. I don't see that. It almost looks like it could go in both directions.
Well, actually, when I first thought about it, I thought, is it something that is designed to fly, you know, to lift off from the water, being its angular shape? Well, I just really not too sure. I didn't know what to make of it. But I have the video footage, and I've gone through it over and over again. And, you know, what's clearly not there as well is there's no markings, there's no stamp marks, no number identifications. There's absolutely nothing on it at all.
It looks Mandalorian.
It does, actually, yes, it does. It does look something straight out of a Star Wars film.
It does got a Star Wars vibe to it, doesn't it?
It really does. But you know what? You know what they said many years ago, wasn't it, that George Lucas would be envy of some of the things that they find around.
I absolutely love this. Now, let me ask you this as we move forward here. How much, and you've done so much analysis, Steve, so you know, you don't have to be specific, but how much is ours? You know, you're seeing something crazy in the sky. You can't explain it because you've never seen it before, but it's ours. If you were going to come up with a number, how much of it is ours?
I would say percentage more is ours than theirs now, you know, because now we've got to a point where you know, our technology is almost as good as nearly as their technology in some of these things, even if we're just test flying, you know. But I mean, they've been doing this for a long time with numerous different ways, different types of propulsion engines, even nuclear engines, which they did with the Betty Cash incident. The poor ladies that got literally nuclear blasted by an object, which was being followed by about quite a number of helicopters back in 1918. That literally was happening just days between the Rendlesham Forest UFO incident over here and the Betty Cash London incident over there. So it's you know,
connected. Do you think they're connected?
I don't think they're connected, but I think it's just uncanny, you know, that things have happened around about that same time. But I would say the biggest problem for us is immediately trying to identify something in the sky now. But the biggest giveaway is that they don't seem to have, or we don't seem to have the capabilities, I don't think, to go into the beyond physics yet, like the real phenomena represents. When they materialize and dematerialize, they can manage to morph, change shape, color, and size. I mean, I've got reports, from the 1960s saying that huge objects were seen, cylindrical craft, it's clearly not ours, picked up on radar. They were seen by pilots, and it looked like just a long cigar. But over a period of a few minutes, these two appendages came out of it to look like wings, and it started pinging a 727 tracer. In other words, it was trying to pretend to be a plane, and it even knew the exact ping to push out to show that radar information would be an aircraft or one of ours rather than anything unusual. It just goes to show how clever and deceptive and evasive these things can be. Exceptional. But I would say when you're immediately looking at something in the sky and you know it's something quite profound and it's not a civilian aircraft, first thing is to assume it might be ours as opposed to theirs, because there's a better likelihood that it would be. But then if you start seeing something where it duplicates, it materializes and dematerializes, changes shape, morphs, I think we're dealing clearly with the phenomena there.
Yeah, we have been researching anti-gravity, corporations, the military, DARPA, for decades and decades. And to think that we haven't made inroads and great successes with that, I think that's being rather naive.
Yeah, I created an anti-gravity device in my own kitchen. Not that hard. It's simple. I just got 3 pieces of balsa wood, glued them together in a triangle. Then I put 3 pins in each corner, and I put a very strong piece of wire which connects all the way around, and lit it up with 50,000 hertz, and it went boom. That's what it does. 50,000 straight into it, just causes the levitation. There's a little. I mean, I was an engineer myself for many years, and I worked at NATO on communication. So it was quite well known that there are really easy methods of generating anti-gravity. But when you want it to propel in a direction, that's when it starts getting tricky. That's when you start introducing, magnetics and propulsion engines and things like that.
Yeah, I think there's some stuff involved. I can't, speak with absolute certainty here, but I think that our modern aircraft today, the skins and what is on the outside, I think there's an electrostatic, electromagnetic, anti-gravitic component to that. They float too easily.
Well, they did that certainly with the stealth bomber. We know that because aviation experts said that craft cannot take off on that length of runway because we know the statistics, we know its weight, we know its size. So therefore, it needs this length of runway to take off.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. It requires literally a third of it. A third.
It's slow.
Yeah.
I see them take off out here, right? Man, I can't say a whole lot. I don't want to get in trouble with my neighbors and things. But you watch it, Steve, and like 2 or 3 things just pop into your head. 1, that looks impossible. 2, I can't hear a damn thing. And 3, it's freaking floating. Right. And it just pops into your, it just doesn't look right.
I think you actually hit the nail on the head there. They're using that type of pushing electrons and energy through the wings to give it lift. It reduces its weight value, basically. Very similar to the metamaterial stuff. It completely loses weight value.
I know. And look, I know I sound like Mr. Crazy Town dude, but when you see it, right? That's a whole nother ball game. Okay, we've got here the spectrum analysis of Hesnallen, and one of my all-time favorite situations and events. So let's just call this an event, right? What's going on here?
Well, you know what? It's a location in Norway, and it's in a positive magnetic region again. And they've been having light phenomena, strange light phenomena taking place, multiple different colours and shapes and sizes for many years. And there's actually a scientific observatory up there on the top of the hills there now. It's only a very small town, Hasdalen. And the scientists which have been involved in this long-term study have been photographing and videoing these particular anomalies. Now, some of them are structural, look like this particular photograph. It looks like it's quite triangular with numerous different lights moving across the valley. And initially, it was thought, because there was a scientific document that was released in 2007, and initially they thought it was some type of Earth-like phenomena. However, interviews with these same scientists now, they've changed the tune, because what they're saying is these lights have started firing pencil beam lights down to the ground, like little lasers. And this puts it into a whole different ballgame. So what they did is to use special, like what we did, is to be able to measure the frequency of light around these, whatever these things are. And it was in that terahertz frequency again. And it keeps popping up, this terahertz frequency. It popped up in our research of ancient sites when the sun enters into the chambers at these locations in Ireland and the UK and all the places around the world during solstice, during equinox, when the sun is just in the right position to enter that chamber. The sun at setting and the sun at rising is producing the very same terahertz frequency. And this is why sometimes we get so many associations between some of this phenomena, light phenomena in UFOs, and locations where ancient sites are. But the good thing is about Hasdalen is that it's a continuing phenomena. We're planning on hopefully getting there next year, myself and Bowie, because we know from the people that live in the town, because people aren't talking to the people that are living in the town. They're talking to the scientists up on the hilltops. You go down and talk to the people in the town, Jimmy. They're having really, really profound experiences. They're seeing craft, they're seeing entities, they're having paranormal things happen.
Like what? I've known about. They made the announcement about the permanent observatory station, which I was so thankful that somebody actually took the initiative to choose not to ignore this. The phenomenon was being observed and videotaped and photographed for a very long time. So they decided to put a permanent observation tower up there that's running 24/7. Very cool. But if the town, which is very small and it is remote, but if they are having experiences, why don't they take that a step further? And what kind of experiences are they having?
Well, the scientists didn't. I don't think the scientists really were engaged with the general public that live in that village so much, because it was kind of coming in and do that operation. They may not have even taken kindly to having an observatory stuck up on a hill somewhere, because, like I say, it is in a very rural location. However, as you said, it's small and it's remote. But contacts that we've made with people that know the people that live there. What they're saying is that they're seeing physical crafts in the sky. They're seeing landed crafts. They're seeing entities. They're having outbreaks of paranormal things taking place. And yet, with all these light phenomena, which is literally, it's happening on a regular basis. And of course, what did we do, Jimmy? We went back and we said, let's put it through and see where this lies. It lies in a positive magnetic anomaly of over 200 nanotesla. Again, it's like a signature location where phenomena is manifesting. And what's also interesting that I found on a medical wise is that these areas are extremely low in bacteria. And I only found out by visiting the hospital one day. There were these new doors fitted on a recovery ward. And it had an electromagnetic seal around the door. And I said to them, I said, well, is this these new doors? Why do you have these? And they said to me that, well, we know bacteria doesn't cross over, it doesn't like magnetics. The electromagnetics of that seal stops the bacteria getting over that threshold. So they are trying to keep a bacterial low-level area in these recovery wards when people come after operations. I thought to myself, well, if you take that on a grander scale of a location like positive magnetic regions, then we have low bacterial areas. So if phenomena is manifesting there, it's manifesting in areas where there's low bacteria and maybe leaving in areas where there's low bacteria. It's like being an operation guy and washing your hands before the operation and then after doing about your business and then washing your hands afterwards. It's in that ideal locations where these things seem to be manifesting.
Man, that is fascinating. I just learned something. I've never thought about it in those terms. That makes a lot of sense. And with wow.
We got a full scientific document that shows the effects on bacteria with magnetics, electromagnetics, and it's incredible. And when we realize on a grander scale, and we're talking the magnetics of planet Earth, in certain key locations where they're so positive, they reach such high levels, your bacterial levels are literally right down.
Now, in Hessdalen, the phenomena, I've seen the video and I've seen still images, and it looks to me now. I think I'm seeing two different things, and we're actually seeing that here. It looks like it's under some type of intelligent control. I think that is clear, but it's an erratic control. It's not like it's making sense. Do you get the same feeling?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we've seen video footage all over the world like this. Those are old CCTV black and white ones from South America, where it was coming through a small village, and it was just a ball of light. It was just moving around erratically, but it's it's a fair size, this thing, but it's moving around, and we see this quite a lot in the subject of UFOs because people say it's strange. It's as if it's alive because it's dodging around like it's some type of fly.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly my point. And now here, this and this is the second point I wanted to make about Hessdalen, is that the triangle shaped craft with the red light on the front of it here, that looks physical to me. And some of the Hessdalen lights I have also thought looked like physical craft. Others, the majority of Hessdalen looks like it's an energy source.
Exactly.
Are we seeing a mix of both? What do you think?
I believe so, because this is what we discovered as we were going through at these particular locations around the world. We found that there's seemingly ones which look to be structured crafts with auric fields around them, and there are ones which seem to be it's like a new subject here, intelligent light forms. And like I said, I did have that piece. I've still got this video piece now from Afghanistan, taken in 2011. It's a US military base, and they fire a missile at 4 of these objects hanging over the base. And to look at them, they look just like amber, fiery balls of light, but they seem to be dropping something. This is what we refer to as the beaded phenomena. It's like miniature tiny balls of light which somehow are magnetically connected in a line, and they drop from these, the droppers, they keep dropping these things, and they just fade out as they're dropping them, as if they're born into this reality and they disappear. They fired on them. It hit directly 2 of them out of the 4. They shattered as like glass shatters, but all of a sudden comes back solid again and just carries on doing its thing. And it was incredible to see. I mean, you got the night vision footage, you got the real looking footage at that time as what the normal through cameras, and it's incredible. So I think some of these things are light forms which seemingly are intelligent, and some of these things are literally our craft with lights around or lights around them.
When okay, this here. Let's zoom in on this right here. That looks like a craft. And this was flying through the valley up in Hessdalen. That's not a group of what I would normally classify as, natural phenomena, ball lightning, something happening with the rock formations, or it's a geographical phenomena. No, this looks like a physical craft of some kind.
It does. What was interesting in that location, they also get the ones that people thought were light phenomena, natural light phenomena, Earth lights. But what's intriguing is that when there are aircraft around, they seem to just disappear. They seem to evade aircraft in the vicinity, so as if they don't want to be seen. Most of this stuff is being captured without a human presence being there. The automated blanket monitoring through specialized equipment in these labs, which are on top of the hill. And it's constantly 24/7 recording and taking photographs of anything that might be profound or unusual or moving in the sky. Yes, it does record aircraft, but when it's recording aircraft, you don't see these things around. They're seemingly enough to be intelligent to be able to evade even being seen by military or civilian aircraft passing over the area.
One last question before we move on. You can see my mouse here. A majority, not all, like this craft here doesn't fit this, but Hessdalen, the majority of the images and video footage are moving in this direction over the top of the ridge, right? And they're like right here. Why do you think that is? Is it because of what's underneath the hill? Is it?
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, there's always a geological, geophysical connection somewhere. Yeah, there's been mining there. It's been done before. There's a lot of iron in certain parts of those hills, but it's a positive magnetic region, and it might be following some type of Earth energies. This is what initially thought, okay, they must be Earth lights, but they don't act like the Martha lights. The Martha lights are Earth light phenomena. We now know that. But they don't act like them. In fact, one came literally 30 feet away from the observation unit. The scientific observation unit was filming these objects. And as it moved past, it morphed and changed shape, and it changed speed. And in some cases, it even changed color. You're thinking it's some type of gaseous reaction, like that.
Right.
Plasma.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? They don't tend to traverse great distances, but these things seem to go right across the whole valley.
Yeah, it's incredible. I can't say. I almost let something slip. Let's just say this. I'm very interested in the Marfa lights, and I would love to maybe do some media about it. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say, Steve. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to leave that right there. Let's see. Okay, I've got this queued up.
Oh, the glamoring effect.
Yes.
Now, we stumbled across this, and it's not a good thing, really. Now, I'll tell you what happened is that some of these locations we go to, suddenly we will have an appearance take place. And it's big. It's a big object. It's got multiple lights, and it's producing beautiful colors. They're like welder's art lights, and a lovely display. But what tends to happen is, which we didn't really know, is that we're entering some type of dazed state. We're just, I don't know what you can call it, the observer effect. You're kind of locked on it. You don't even think to take a photograph sometimes.
You're hypnotized.
Well,
right.
This is where we wanted to more, where's the scientific study behind this?
Right.
So what we started doing is utilizing flow time, biosensing, EEG readers connected to our head by a mobile phone, and it's measuring our own brainwave activity during experiences. And you know what's happening? What's happening is when we get into that mode is that we are switching. It switches from your normal conscious perception into theta wave. And of course, that theta wave is responsible for memories, false memories, perception alterations. We are changing. Our brainwaves are changing during a process. Now, that has happened as quick as 20 seconds. Once you realize there's this connection between you and that object, in other words, it shows that it's suddenly interested in you, you've got a connection. But then something happens. And what happens to you, you end up in this glamoured effect, and your theta brainwaves start to take over. And that is something that's got to be being produced by somehow the phenomena itself. We've also seen this in studies in paranormal experiences as well. And it's very interesting. Another connection here, how phenomena is inducing theta brainwave activity. It's like putting you in a state that you don't act normal. Sometimes people will see these things or see something really profound, and then it'll disappear, and they won't even talk to the person next to him for a minute. And then they suddenly go, "Did you just see that before?" And he's like, "Well, why didn't you act at the time?" You're not allowed, because that you're still in this theta wave, and you have to get out of it. And of course, the phenomena seemingly has this connection. Not only has the observer, this conscious connection with the observers, I think it's like a conduit between both. If it's established that theta brainwaves starts to happen, you are in that glamoured state. Like you said, it's like being hypnotized, in a sense, speaker, without even knowing it.
Did you take a picture? No. Were you scared? No. Did you run? No. What did you do? Nothing.
Well, do you know what? It's happened to me, and people know me, and they said, "Look, I was traveling in a vehicle. It came right over the road, 30 feet above. Everybody in the car saw it. I'm out of the car, Jimmy. This is me. I would slam the brakes on. I'm out the car. I'm giving chase. I want to know what it is. What the hell is that?" No, for some reason, for goddamn reason, I'm going down the road for another mile or two, and then I suddenly say, "Did everybody see that? I mean, what's all that about?" I mean, and then it suddenly all springs to life, like, "Oh my God, did you just see that?" And it's, well, yeah, but why were we not allowed to act upon it? It's as if we're seized by the phenomena at that moment.
And would this be, not all, but would this be part of the answers for missing time?
I believe some of them are also Oz factor experiences as well, which is a terminology often used in the UK when you see, during this glamoured effect, your surroundings feel strange, void of people, void of cars, void of traffic noise, void of anything. This event is the only thing that exists within your mind. That means the phenomenon is locked with you. There's a cohabiting happening there. It's a conduit. Until it releases you, you don't seemingly act consciously the normal way you should do.
Yeah, this isn't cool or fun.
No, it isn't. It is not cool or fun. I mean, you know what? It doesn't happen all the time, because people will see things traversing backwards and forwards. But hey, if these guys want to stop and pay interest in you, well, that's a whole different ball game. And I wouldn't always, I'll be honest to say to you, I wouldn't always advise to do so without caution, because you don't know what's it going to lead to. And that's the problem regarding some of these close encounter incidents where you've got this observer and conscious connection with the phenomena.
And so here we have the meth connection. Oh no, that's that's sugar or meth?
It is refined sugar. It's refined sugar. I mean, what do people do when they go on Skywatchers, Jimmy? They take the candy bars with them. They take the Coca-Cola with them, full of sugar, so much refined sugar. And I'm the same. I'm the actual same. I'm a lover. I'm addicted to the damn thing, like many other people are. But when I'm going out on an investigation, I starve myself for 72 hours. I have no refined sugar at all in my system. What? And I'll tell you the reasons why. Okay. Because it takes only a handful of this stuff to kill your adrenal system. In other words, it disconnects your fight or flight response. So when you're out there, and that natural innate ability that we all have, that survival sense where you'll feel your arms go all the goose bumping, the hair rises on the back of your neck. it's coming from the skin. Skin's the biggest organ on your body, and it reacts. It tells us things. It tells, if you're a paranormal investigator, it tells them when they go into certain places, like, well, I might not see it, I might not hear it, I might not smell it, but you know what? My body's telling me something's gone on in here, something's not right, it doesn't like it, it wants me out of here. That's just that fight or flight response. We rely on that. And we rely on that in cases like this, because sometimes people become so feared. Your natural body is saying, get the hell out of there. It's telling you, it's a warning mechanism, and they can't even recognize it because there's so much refined sugar in their system that it's caused adrenal weakness, so that they can't even detect a fight or flight. And that's a problem when people are out there investigating. You have to rely on your own senses. It's the best piece of equipment we have, is our own ways of sensory perception of this. And we rely on those. People have said, I do, it's like that. It's like when selling a house. Anyone can go and buy a house. But what do we rely on mostly, Jimmy? We go into there, it's what it feels like, isn't it? It's, it feels good. It feels nice. It feels homely. This is what, if he's got an odd feeling, you know what? It's a bit of a strange feeling here. They're not going to buy it. This is how much we rely on this to work. And it's the same thing through this process as well.
Now, okay, refined sugar, but what about my mom's apple pie? Can I still?
Tell her to change the type of sugar. Use natural sugar.
Yeah, natural sugar, and I'm okay. Now, what about? And I'm not making light of this, but what about things like pastrami sandwiches? Is there's other things that we would need to be?
We're fine. I mean, you know what? It's things with intense refined sugar in it. I mean, it's your candy bars. It's soft drinks, like, which have got a massive amount of refined sugar in them. And that's what people do. They consume more when they're out, and what they're doing is they're stuck there, hopefully going to have some type of close encounter.
Right.
And basically ruining the only thing that will tell them it's not good to be there.
Right. But beer's okay.
Beer's okay as long as there's you can get beer for which doesn't it's not created with refined sugars.
Yeah. Okay. So just refined sugar then.
Refined sugar, yes.
The rest of my diet is in the okay zone.
Yeah, it's a very profound thing, refined sugar. It's unlike anything else. It is a poison, believe it or not.
It is.
It is a poison to the body.
I just don't do refined sugars anymore. I don't do it. Pure cane sugar, that's a difference. I don't use it, but what I don't do is the crazy candies and the crazy sodas and drinks and all that. No, I've completely eliminated that stuff out of my diet. But it hasn't sped me up though. I don't run any faster, so I haven't put it to the test. I have not put it to the test. That's very interesting though. Here we go. Now this is it's just something that everybody talks about and wants to practice. I've got my own version of it, but CE5 training.
Yeah, well, you know what? We know now through experiments that phenomena can be conjured. When there was a very interesting and very well-known experiments that were taking place during 1998 in the UK in a small town known as Norfolk called the Skull Experiment. And that went on until the late 1990s. Then there was some further work done with some friends of mine, the advanced stages of skull experiment. And then I went on into an experiment known as Project Phenomena. And that was further into the skull experiments where phenomena can be conjured. Now, what's really interesting is that there was also an experiment called the Philip experiment. It took place in Canada and Ontario with a number of psychologists and specialists that literally created a ghost in a literal sense. It had actually its own physical existence. It was like a tulpa. And it was created. It was part of an experiment, and it was shown to be positive. These things, there's really no difference in having five 5 mediums sat around a seance table and having something materialize than there is 5 meditators out on the beach looking up at the sky trying to physically have something appear. It's the same thing as C5. The C5 initiative and training is no different than the old German Metaphysical Society that became the Vril Society. It's exactly the same method if you're meditating or mediumship. So we always know that there's always been this method of being able to conjure phenomena, and it is the real phenomena, by the way. When you conjure it, it isn't this is it's just something representing it. It is the real phenomena that you can conjure, and it gets into if you go back years ago, it'll go back into the magic and conjuring of stuff and witchcraft and things like that. But it's all one the same thing. We know that it can happen. Now, when we looked into doing these particular experiments, we realized very quickly, during Skull, the latter 8 stages of Skull, Skull experiment had to get shut down because it was invaded by non-human entities. That was when they first appeared on the scene. Long before UFOs were talked about, were alien beings, interdimensional beings. Aleister Crowley came head-to-head with one, which referred to as Lamb, in 1908, and of course exactly the same. And the photograph to the left is one which is the drawing from what Aleister Crowley said, 1919, his experience with this interdimensional. Do you know what, Jimmy? It's the first time he ever got his butt kicked, and that really bothered him. It bothered him.
Yes, it bothered him a lot.
Yeah, he didn't have control. He lost complete control.
That's right.
This thing had him. It came through, and what's interesting is the photograph in the middle is a photograph taken only a number of years ago as part of the Stephen Greer meditation circle. They sit around and they meditate about having experiences, and these things were photographed. Just like in Skull, there were entities photographed and video filmed, and they had to close it down. They had to shut it down. The mediums lost control of the circle. But the problem with that is that whatever these entities were, they stayed with the main guy who was running the experiment in Skull, Robin Froy, who's unfortunately passed away now. They stayed with him for the rest of his life. They invaded his life like the hitchhiker effect. And that's not good, because sometimes this phenomenon does have a sting in its tail. Even Robert Bigelow said now, I can't believe, due to some of the experiments, after I did these certain experiments at Skinwalker, that I had these multiple serendipities, so much bad stuff happened in my life. And it wasn't just him. There were other members of the NIDS that went through exactly the same thing. So sometimes I think you can press it too much, and it gets under your skin because it draws you in because you're interested. And that can be a problem sometimes, because then it can start hitchhiking into your lives and cause all sorts of chaos sometimes.
What I always found fascinating about Lamb, and I can't wait for your comment on this, is that was in 1919. Most people don't. They look at Lamb and they think that this was 1955. It wasn't. This was 1919, and Lamb was a personal experience with Aleister Crowley. This wasn't spread out through the media. This wasn't put in newspapers around the world. This wasn't known by the masses. It's a very, very small private incident that was shared with Aleister and his close circle of people. What was reported later on, all the way through to today, is what Aleister saw in 1919, and it wasn't the other way around, was it?
No, absolutely. This is an early day. It goes up even before then. The experiences of the manifestation of entities through the practice of spiritualism, in the 1600s, there were even, documented incidences then of things turning up that didn't look, definitely not, non-human looking. But the problem, the thing is with this is that, the Vril Society got into it. It was the German Metaphysical Association one time, the group, and it became the Vril Society because they started communicating with what they believed was non-human entities, which happens. This is where they originated around. They originated around the seance tables, not UFOs in the skies.
That's
You
right.
know?
Yeah.
And what they did is they realized that they could ask questions and gain answers, and they were trying to get information, dribs and drabs. They never got a full picture. They only got little dribs and drabs because that's what it does. It draws you in of advanced technological information that might be able to be utilized during aviation technology. And this is what was being used during the drill practice and the German advanced technological scientists, which were working on aviation stuff. Do you know what? It didn't surprise me that during the 1970s that Boeing had secret meetings at seance locations because they thought that they could get technological information about aviation details from a source they were communicating through the seances.
That's right. Well, you had the founder of Bell Helicopters doing the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah. And the 9. Let's go there.
The 9. Exactly.
Yeah. And the influential. Now look. Okay. I'm just going to piss everybody off right now. The world wants to think that UFOs only make contact with yahoos that are fishing in the swamps of Louisiana.
Yeah.
Right? That's the intelligence.
That's it.
And that's the picture that is painted. When we talk about the 9 and we talk about the Vril and we talk about Boeing and the Bell Helicopters, we are talking about people that are supposed to be the smart ones, the influential ones, the industrialists, the ones that run corporations, the ones that are the movers and the thinkers. They can't be fooled by stuff like this, right? They believe in this. They trust in this. They know the phenomenon is real, and they are always making contact. And that's it. That's it. It's not Bob and Bob and Bernie in a fishing boat in Louisiana. That's simply not the case, is it, Steve?
It isn't. No, I mean, it's surprising actually. Some of the heads of departments that have been involved in these studies. It's very quiet, but because it was beneficial. Sometimes, just sometimes, they were given bits of information which was viable. It was advanced information about aviation technology, and they started to manufacture and use it. And guess what? It works. But do you know what? They pressed, and sometimes they just wouldn't get everything that they wanted to. It's because the whole thing is designed to keep you coming back. Keep coming back. We don't want to tell you everything because you'll just go but keep that going because the phenomenon eventually gets under your skin, and it likes to infest into your life. It's happened with me. I mean, I've been in this field now for 40 years, paranormal, ufological, and I find I have to live in a house where I have disturbances all the time. I live in a house where I know when I can go outside and see UFOs. It's crazy. It's crazy. I don't need to go to locations. They seek me out. And I know sometimes when they do. I live in a crazy world now because I've opened the door too wide, Jimmy. I'll be honest with you. I have. And it won't shut properly now. And
it's
that's
jammed.
It's jammed open.
Jammed open. Oh, man. Now, this, well, I've kind of saved the best for last, but this is extremely interesting to me. And I want to get the size just right so everybody can read it. Okay, there, I've got it. Differentials in apportation analysis, polarized light microscopy, environmental scanning, electron microscopy, and atomic force microscopy. This is, now we've got an experiment here. We've got 2 different mugs. We have A and B. Take us through this, Steve.
Okay, now joining an investigation in the 2000s of a poltergeist infestation, they were having quite a number of what is referred to as apports. Now, this is an incident where, for instance, you're drinking a cup of tea or you put something down and suddenly it just, you reach over to it to get it again, it's vanished, it's gone. And what's really weird is it turns up in some other location. It's usually one or two places. A place where you'd never put it, like a bottle of milk in an airing cupboard, for example, where you keep your towels, or it's in the most obvious place. It's in the middle of the floor in the living room where you can't miss it, you know. But it's an act. It's a paranormal act. Now, for many years, science thought that this is simply an object that is dematerialized by some unknown physics method and materialized. So what we did is, what we asked the person, this is a mug I ported. He said, "Do you have any more mugs like this?" He said, "Well, actually, I only bought them 3 months ago at Christmas. I bought a set of 4 ceramic white mugs." I said, "Well, is it possible we can take the apported mug away for analysis? And could you possibly give us a test sample mug, the other mug, it isn't the apported mug, to see if there's any difference between them?"
Okay, let me stop you right there and explain to everybody. We've got the affected mug, the one that has the high strangeness, and we have one from the set of mugs that wasn't a part of the high strangeness, correct?
Absolutely correct, yeah.
Okay, so
I mean, yeah, these were bought as a pack of 4, and they came off the production line, the ceramic production line altogether. So you'd think they were going to be roughly the same. So, what we measured the mugs, there was no difference, although 309 grams, 319 grams. And of course, there were some differences, slight differences in the electromagnetics of it, slight differences in the radiation levels. But overall, if you were to pick up this, Jimmy, you'd look at it and feel it, and you say they're absolutely identical. You would not be able to tell one from the other. But that all changed when we put mug A, the apported mug, under analysis, followed by B, the mug which was the sample mug. Now, what happens is that's broken down and looked microscopically at what's going on in the mug. And if your computer at that time could measure, such as the likelihood of it being the mug that left, the answer would be no. It is not the mug that left. It's a mimic. It's a replica, and the reasons being because it's vastly different. It doesn't look it, doesn't feel it, but under the microscope, it's vastly different. The diathermic reactions in this particular mug were crazy. We're absolutely crazy, and we have to argue now: was it even the same mug?
Yeah, right. And so what the testing shows is that mug A should be the normal one.
Yeah, and when we looked at the sample, we looked at the B mug, which was the normal mug. That's just normal. It's normal ceramics, nothing unusual about that. And you look at A, and you think, well, it's not. It's so different. You'd even go to as far as to say it's not even the mug it left. Now, what's really interesting is that the diathermic reaction that took place in this mug we'd seen before. And I scoured through my UFO files. I mean, I took over MAPIT, which is an organization that's been running since 1974. And I went through hundreds and hundreds of documents of UFO files. I knew I'd seen this diathermic reaction before somewhere. I couldn't find the damn thing. It took me several months, and suddenly I had that light bulb moment one day. It's not in my UFO files. It's not in the paranormal files. It's in the UFO stuff. I thought I was looking in the wrong area.
Let's look at this for a second. So the radiation levels almost doubled.
Yeah.
Right? If I'm reading the data correctly here, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The weight stayed the same. Now the ATT, the approximate transference time of 96 minutes. What is that?
That's when it disappeared till it was discovered.
The temperature normality of 6 degrees. The temperature anomaly is 21 degrees.
Yes.
Now,
the apported object was warmer than it should be.
Wow. The displacement, it was moved 47 inches.
Yes.
15 degrees warmer than normality. The electromagnetic differential was 8.08. Is that micrograms?
Yes.
Radiation differential is 0.47 MSV.
Yes.
That doesn't make any sense.
Well, it's the scales reference to the meters, the equipment that we use to measure. They are measured in certain scales.
I'm not talking about the rad differential. I'm talking about the experiment. That doesn't make sense.
It doesn't. Should not be. Everything points to mug A not being the mug at left, because if it is, it's gone under some serious changes to it. And what stood out was the diathermic reaction. And when I said I originally found it, I found it. It was in the UFO documentation of case files. A UFO incident that took place a number of years back was seen to manifest close to the ground. It was investigated. I think it might have been even MUFON that were involved in this. And it affected the area of plant growth. So the scientist guys came out and they took samples of the plants, which is known as plant biological traumatology tests. And what did they find in those plants? Exactly the same diathermic reaction. So my big question is, if a mug suddenly materializes in a haunted house, or a UFO materializes out in a field, they're utilizing the very same physics.
And we just don't understand what that is. We're going to figure it out. Today, Steve, look, today it's sorcery, right? Today it's like black magic to us. To ET, it's simple. And if we go back in time, and again, I don't want to sound like I'm completely naive here, but if we go back in time, 200 years ago, and tell everybody about flying to the moon, on rocket ships, that's sorcery, black magic. You try to convince somebody 200 years ago of what a microwave oven does, right? But we have those in every kitchen. You mean I can heat up my coffee in 15 seconds? Absolutely. By pressing a button, right? That's black magic sorcery. And it's the same thing that we are we just don't understand it yet. We don't have the capacity to get there.
Yeah, but what's interesting is that it's another connection between the ufological phenomena and the paranormal.
It's 100%. It's the same thing. We are out of time, and I wanted to get to because this is one of my favorite sites on planet Earth. Can you do this? Can you do me a favor? Can we do this in 90 seconds? Giant rock.
Yeah. Think about giant rockets. Everybody said, you know what, it was very big from the 30s. People go and gather there for the biggest events in the world. It's like your very first contact in the desert, when you go and visit. And it was very popular, but it was not popular for the wrong things. It was nothing to do with UFOs seen in the sky. What happened was entities were seen coming out of the rock. 3 of them. Entities walked out of the rock. Remember me telling you about that geological association? This is what the giant rock is, how it all began. And of course, this, it got twisted into, oh yes, UFOs were seen in the sky. Yes, UFOs have been seen in the sky there, but there wasn't the initiation of these entities going through the rock. It's noted as the second largest piece of single rock in the world. And where is it? Where is it where people have had these experiences? It's in a positive magnetic region. Now, when you will measure these, you can actually measure on the scale down at the bottom of 250 nanotesla positive. It's another one of those locations. It's crazy because now you can go to one of these particular locations and go, well, what is there? Mm-hmm. And then you suddenly, hang on a second, that's where Travis Walton had his experience. It's when the Hopkinsville aliens attacked the cabin. It's where the Flatwoods monster appeared. It's where the Rua alien incident took place at school. They're all the same places. And I think there's really good reason for that, Jimmy.
And the in this image, follow my cursor. That's the 29 Palms freeway that goes through there. And along that freeway, on the north and the south side, actually, but on the north side, right where my cursor is, I have had some of the most fantastic sightings ever. Right there, including, of course, Giant Rock. Giant Rock is one of my favorite places. And I'm going to be doing a private sky watch with Billy Carson out there next month. And I just did one with Billy at Giant Rock. Okay, so here's Giant Rock right here, right? Okay, so over here, see this hill on the right side of this picture? We took my Jeep, Steve, and we drove up and parked on the top of this hill.
You got it up there?
Now, from this angle, you can't tell. But from the top of that hill, you're looking down on Giant Rock. You should see the pictures. And we sat there with chairs and night vision. There was, a half dozen of us, Billy and I and Elizabeth and some friends, and had the most amazing sky watch. And I think I'm in agreement. That's the reason why. Giant Rock in that area is a very, very, very special place, and the Integratron is there. And
absolutely, it is a location where UFOs would seemingly manifest in a positive magnetic region. There is some physics that are involved. It's not just random where these things are just turning up and manifesting. There's some purpose that they're doing it, and it does have that connection with the geology of the Earth.
Well, I'm going to be seeing you in a couple of months, my friend, August 25th.
Yes,
26th,
looking forward to it.
I've been practicing, man. I'm telling you. Hello. Just I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun. Steve, listen, behave. I know that you're constantly producing new media. You're always working on stuff. I'm excited. Keep us posted when this stuff is released so we can check it out over here. I'll see you in a couple of months, but I can't wait until you're on the show with us again. Thank you so much, my friend.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Jimmy. Talk to you soon.
You're the very best, Steve Mera. And now I do have Steve's links and websites and everything. They are in the description box below. They are over on the website, and we have them up throughout social media. Thank you so much. And that's going to wrap this episode of Fade to Black. And we're heading into the weekend. We've got a great week lined up next week. We'll be posting all of that over the weekend. But until then, I want everybody to have a great, safe, fun, amazing weekend. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Thank you to Dennis and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2023 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Have a great weekend, everybody. Be safe. Go back, Lee Tappy.